Abraham, known as the father of faith, stands as one of the most towering figures in the Bible. His story, woven throughout the book of Genesis, begins in the land of Ur of the Chaldeans, a bustling city marked by its devotion to moon worship. Yet it was in this pagan environment that God chose to call a man to become the progenitor of his chosen people, a man through whom he would bless the entire world. Abraham, originally named Abram, was a man of wealth and status, but it was his response to God's call that truly defined him. At 75 years old, he heard the voice of God commanding him to leave behind his homeland, his kindred, and his father's house to journey to an unknown land, a place God promised to show him. This command was staggering. To leave the security of his established life for an unseen future required extraordinary faith. Yet Abram obeyed, taking with him his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all their possessions. With every step, Abram demonstrated a faith that trusted in God's promise, even when the destination was veiled in mystery. When Abram arrived in Canaan, God reaffirmed his promise, "To your offspring, I will give this land." But challenges immediately arose. The land was not empty. It was inhabited by the Canaanites, and soon a severe famine struck. Abram's faith wavered as he sought refuge in Egypt, and there, out of fear for his life, he deceived Pharaoh by claiming Sarai was his sister. This act of self-preservation brought trouble, yet God intervened to protect Sarai and preserved his plan for Abram. As time passed, the promise of offspring seemed more elusive. Sarai was barren, and doubts crept into their hearts. In a moment of impatience, Sarai proposed that Abram father a child through her servant, Hagar. This decision, though culturally acceptable at the time, revealed human frailty in the face of divine promises. Hagar bore a son, Ishmael, but the resulting strife within the household underscored the consequences of stepping outside of God's will. Yet even in this, God showed mercy, promising to bless Ishmael while reaffirming that the covenant would come through a child born to Sarai. God's covenant with Abram deepened when he changed his name to Abraham, meaning father of many nations, and Sarai's to Sarah, princess. These new names were tangible reminders of his promise. To seal the covenant, God instituted circumcision as a sign of the agreement, marking Abraham and his descendants as set apart for divine purposes. The moment of fulfillment came when Abraham was 100 years old and Sarah was 90. Against all odds, Sarah conceived and gave birth to Isaac, the child of promise. The birth of Isaac was a testament to God's power and faithfulness, a reminder that nothing is impossible with him. Yet Abraham's journey of faith was far from over. The ultimate test came when God commanded Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. This request was almost incomprehensible. Isaac represented the fulfillment of God's promise and the hope of the future. Still, Abraham obeyed, rising early to journey to Mount Moriah. With every step, his heart must have wrestled with questions, but his actions spoke of unwavering trust in God's character. As Abraham raised the knife, God intervened, providing a ram as a substitute. This profound moment foreshadowed the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God, who would take away the sins of the world. Abraham's life was a tapestry of faith, doubt, obedience, and God's unyielding faithfulness. He was not perfect, but his relationship with God was marked by trust and surrender. Through his story, we learn that faith often requires stepping into the unknown, holding on to promises that seem impossible, and trusting in a God who always provides. Today, Abraham's legacy endures. He is a reminder that God calls ordinary people to extraordinary purposes, and he equips those he calls. Abraham's journey teaches us to walk by faith, to trust in God's timing, and to cling to his promises even when circumstances seem bleak. Through Abraham, we see that God is faithful to his word, and his plans are far greater than anything we could imagine. Let us, like Abraham, step forward in faith, knowing that the one who calls us is always faithful to lead us.